The Bible makes it clear that every time that there is a story of faith, it is completely original. God's creative genius is endless. Each life is a fresh canvas on which he uses lines and colors, shades and lights, textures and proportions that he has never used before. And we see how it is possible by plunging into a life of faith, exploring what God is doing in each event.
An iPhone today can shoot higher quality video than the Pro camera that I started out with 10 years ago as a media director at a church. It's true, but you need to make sure that your settings are correct and you have the right app. And to prove that to you, Mitch and I flew to Scandinavia. I'm standing outside a beautiful stave church right here in Norway. Why here? Well, because there are no buildings that are quite this old and look quite like this on our continent. This church was built in the 1100s, and today we're visiting 13 churches. We're going to break down the key principles for shooting cinematic footage. We'll do a couple of gear giveaways, and I'll show you exactly what you need to get the color grading on the footage that I captured. Because while yes, the phone is very capable of capturing beautiful footage, it doesn't work like a normal camera, so if you try to use it like a mirrorless or cinema camera, you're probably going to end up with footage that doesn't look so good. You just need to know how to use it right. But before we get to that, there's a critical step that we have to accomplish first. To complete this step, we have to travel back just about 72 hours. Okay, welcome back in time. We're here in beautiful Copenhagen, Denmark, looking forward to our road trip through Norway to see some beautiful churches in a few days. First though, we need to talk about what it takes to capture cinematic shots with your iPhone. And the place to start is composition. You know, dynamic range, resolution, proper exposure, those things all matter, of course, but so much of what we perceive as cinematic comes down to the composition of the frame. Practically speaking, here's what I like to do. As I'm preparing for a video, I compile a series of stills in an album on my phone. A few places I like to go for this, any stock photo or stock video site that you like, for example, Unsplash. Another great site though, ShotDeck, which has hundreds of thousands of stills from real movies and commercials, and you can search by director, subject matter, setting, movie, etc. It's not a free site, but it does have a 2-week free trial with no credit card required. And as always, like everything mentioned in every video of ours, this is not an affiliate, partnership, or paid ad in anything that you see. So this is one of the frames that I had saved as an example. A person in the center, wide angle, cameras lower to the ground, pointed up with the church's windows adding proportion and dimension to the frame. Now, I didn't expect to get a shot from inside a church that looked like this, but this did serve as inspiration for the final frame that you're seeing here. Another frame I had saved, a church steeple with only sky in the background, that turned into this final frame. Similarly, I had a few stills in my shot deck where the church was in the background with foliage or grass that was out of focus in the foreground, which is framing the church and adding depth to the shot. You know, here you can see what we got for those final frames. And finally, not everything is church related. Here's a still with people out of focus in the foreground, with the background in focus. I figured we would be able to get a shot somewhat similar to that on location. And here's what that eventually turned into. Now, every final clip you've seen so far, it's visible to you, but as of yet, I have not shot them. And the point of these stills is to inspire composition. And the reason I have them on my phone is so that while we're out filming, I can easily access them if and when I need a little inspiration on what to shoot next. Of course, these are stills, but movement plays a massive role in making a shot cinematic as well. So let's discuss that and give away some free gear, but let's do it in our next Scandinavian city. Welcome to Stockholm, where we are taste testing cardamom buns versus cinnamon buns, along with assembling some iPhone rigs that come with the promise of helping us more easily capture cinematic shots. And we've got 3 different rigs here. First, the Polar Pro Light Chaser 15 with a variable ND filter, cost $150. We've got the small rig Brandon Lee mobile video kit, which comes with a variable ND filter, but also these detachable handles for $140. And then finally, my own DIY accessory with an ND filter costing a whopping $17. Now, we're gonna get into movement and what I think are the best accessories for iPhone videography, but what we're also gonna do is give 2 of your churches these new iPhone rigs. All you have to do to win one of these rigs is click the link in the description below, subscribe to our newsletter, The 167. I publish a new issue every Thursday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern. This newsletter is all about helping your church navigate the 167 hours beyond Sunday service every week. We're gonna be announcing the winners of this giveaway next Thursday in the newsletter. You can read past issues and subscribe so you are eligible to win at the link below or directly at 167.prochurchtools.com. If you're watching this after the giveaway is over, we do these from time to time, so make sure you are subscribed going forward. Now, you'll notice that each of these 3 rigs has a variable ND filter. And if there was one accessory that I'd say matters more than any other when shooting with your iPhone, it is an external SSD, so you can record footage without worrying about phone storage, which is why we recently backed on Kickstarter the new product from Lexar. It's called the Lexar Professional Go Portable SSD with Hub. Now, why would an established company like Lexar do a Kickstarter campaign? I don't know, but I thought it was pretty cool. The thing is, it did not arrive in time for this trip, but it's extremely small. It gives you a terabyte of speedy SSD storage, and it also provides 2 additional USB-C ports, so you could connect a wireless mic, let's say, or an additional battery pack as well to your iPhone. By the way, we're also going to be giving away this to a church, so it's actually 3 gear giveaways instead of 2. Beyond that, though, it really is the variable ND filter that is such a useful tool for iPhone videography, because here's the thing. The iPhone has a locked f-stop at 1.8. And you're gonna want your shutter angle to stay at 180 degrees for cinematic shots with the right amount of motion blur. And as we'll get to, there are actually only 4 ISO values that you can safely use, meaning it's very challenging to expose your shot properly, especially in bright situations, which is what we're going to be in when we're shooting these churches in Norway in about 48 hours in the middle of broad daylight. So we wanted to test out a few different options. First up, the Polar Pro phone case. Phone goes into the case, ND filter connects, and this is a nice low profile option. What it doesn't provide though are the detachable handles that the small rig Brandon Lee case does. Also, the green color on the small rig case is, to my eyes, superior. I also like how you load the small rig case. Instead of shoving your phone in the case, the top opens and you can gently slide the iPhone in. I also got this accessory to mount an external SSD to the cage. This was another $50, but what if you don't want to pay the $150-ish for one of these 2 options? Well, that brings us to the DIY option. First, I bought this Xanady MagSafe mount for $12, and then using some super glue, I glued this $6 52mm step-up ring to the MagSafe mount, and then I took the 82mm variable ND filter I already owned and used on my other lenses and cameras, and I screwed it into the step-up ring when I'm using the iPhone, unscrew it when I need it for other cameras. The only other customization I did and needed to do with this DIY rig is take some electrical tape and place it in the spots that the step-up ring doesn't cover when it's attached to the back of the iPhone, so now no light can leak in. And that electrical tape just sits flush up against the camera lenses. So if you already had an ND filter, this $20 DIY option might be your best bet. Honestly, I'd take it over the Polar Pro option. The only downside is that it doesn't have those detachable handles, which you may not need. Why might you want those detachable handles? Well, they can be great for capturing shots with movement. So let's finally get to that, shall we? Now that we've sorted out our accessories, final stop, the country of Norway. So, welcome to Sleater Church, which is one of the amazing 13 churches that we are visiting today. Now, when you're using these side handles and you're gonna film a shot at chest level, honestly, it's no less easy to just hold the iPhone with no fancy gear. But what if I want to capture a shot inspired by that still from earlier, where the camera is pointed, up at the church windows? That's when this type of rig does come in handy. Or, what if I want to capture a shot really low to the ground, where I have to keep the foreground out of focus and the background in focus in the frame? Again, this kind of rig makes that shot so much easier. I also like the quick release system the Smart Rig has. You can move the handles to the top, to the side without having to really rearrange very, very much. And that makes it a lot more customizable. Also has Bluetooth, so you can trigger recording remotely if you wanted. One more type of frame that this would be really useful for that we're not really shooting today is if you were doing any type of like vlog setup where you were holding it like this. Again, doesn't really make sense for the shots that we're doing today, but perhaps for you that makes sense and it would be useful in that respect. Enough of this rig though. I also want to show you some locked off static shots on a tripod, which can be just as cinematic as any type of shot with movement. Today we're using the Atom Tech phone tripod mount, which was $15 off of Amazon, and it's mounted on our Peak Design travel tripod that we've been using for years. To make a static shot cinematic, you can do one of two things. First, the shot itself can be static with no movement, but you can have some type of movement within the frame, like what you're seeing right now. You can also just have exceptional composition on its own. Very little movement in the shot, but leading lines doing all of the heavy lifting and creating that fluidity. And then you can mix static shots with movement shots, and that contrast and variety can give your edit that much more flavor. Also, don't sleep on aspect ratio. Taking this shot from 16:9 to 4:3. I don't know, it's just scratching the right part of my creative brain. Of course, you could also go the other direction with aspect ratio and make it super, super wide as well, which creates an entirely different look. Importantly, we still need to talk about the right settings and app to capture the best footage possible with your phone. Right now, everything still hinges on this, so let's get right to it. First, head to the App Store and download the Blackmagic Camera app. It's 100% free, and what this is going to do is unlock video settings for your iPhone that you won't get in the iPhone camera app. Plus, it'll make it feel more like you're actually shooting with a camera and not with a phone. Now, in the Blackmagic Camera app settings, inside the Record tab, you're going to want to choose your codec. And here, you've got some options because with both HEVC, H.265, and Apple ProRes, they're going to allow you to shoot in Apple Log, which is necessary for capturing the best video quality possible. So which one is better? Well, it's really not that simple. So let's talk about the pros and cons here, because the right codec for you might not be the right codec for another church. And there are three variables to consider: file size, editing performance, and image quality. You can have two of the three, but not all three. We'll start with file size. ProRes HQ will yield file sizes 17 times bigger than H.265. ProRes is 12 times bigger, and even ProRes LT is still 8.5 times bigger. So unless you're hooking up your iPhone to an external SSD, which many iPhone videographers choose to do, you might have a tough time with those file sizes being stored internally. This brings us to HEVC, which is an acronym for High Efficiency Video Codec. And yes, the codec is supremely efficient. To keep file sizes that small relative to ProRes, it's impressive. That comes with trade-offs. Editing performance is one of those trade-offs, because for a codec to be this efficient, it'll be proportionately complex. The more complex a codec is, the more challenging it is to interpret while editing, which means your footage can lag, making for a miserable editing experience. Meanwhile, ProRes is famously easy to edit, but it comes with those giant file sizes. Now, what's also worth mentioning here is that if you are using an Apple Silicon Mac with an M1, M2, or M3 chip, computers that first entered the market in 2020, those machines have dedicated hardware accelerators to help make editing with codecs like HEVC that much easier. This brings us to image quality, and I've got a straightforward answer for you here. Image quality is superior with ProRes. The thing is, not by much. While the file sizes might be 10 times bigger, the improvement in image quality is what I would describe as minimal, especially if you properly expose your image and use the right ISO. Now, we could get way deeper into the weeds with this, but ultimately, you've got three options. Number one, you want the best image quality and the best editing performance. To accomplish that, you'll want to shoot ProRes, and you'll need an external SSD. Maybe you've got one lying around already, or maybe you're content spending, a couple $100 extra. Done. Option number two, you want great image quality, and because you've got an Apple Silicon Mac, you're not too worried about editing performance, and you really don't want to spend on an external drive. Or, hey, philosophically, you believe, look, if I'm shooting on an iPhone, I don't want to buy extra accessories. That's the entire point of shooting on an iPhone. Well, okay, easy. You'll want HEVC. And then option number three, you want great image quality, You don't want to buy an SSD, but you don't have an Apple Silicon Mac. For you, you'll still want to shoot in HEVC, but transcode that footage. Convert it to ProRes once you've got it on your computer so you can still have great editing performance. Okay, I promise that choosing settings going forward now will be mildly easier. For resolution, select 4K. For color space, Apple Log. Next, move to the camera tab and change shutter measurement from speed to angle. Also, make sure that lock white balance on record is activated. And then to the LUTs tab, the app comes with a monitoring LUT. This won't lock the colors into the final file, but it'll help us view an image while filming that isn't flat and gray. For me, this monitoring LUT had way too much contrast in it, and I did not like the colors at all, so I created my own using Color Space Transform in DaVinci Resolve. It's linked in the description. You can download it for free. To use this LUT, just airdrop it to your phone and then click Import LUT. Add it. It's called Apple Log CST. Make sure it's selected and then turn Display LUT on. Everything else can stay the same, and let's go to the camera app itself now. First, here's what the image looks like without the monitoring LUT, and here's what it looks like with it. Much nicer. In the top left corner, you can choose your lens. 24mm, which is 1x, and 13mm, which is 0.5x. That's what I'd stick to most of the time. For FPS, or frames per second, you can go all the way up to 60p in 4K for that beautiful slow motion. In shutter angle, I'll lock that at 180 degrees. Next, ISO. And this is where you want to pay very close attention. There are only 4 ISO values that you can reliably use on the iPhone, because ISO does not work on the iPhone the way it does in a mirrorless or cinema camera. You may have heard it said that the very best dynamic range for iPhone is around 1250 ISO, which is true. But what it does is it introduces noise and a noticeably less sharp image. In my tests, I did not care for the image at that high of an ISO. With that being said, the 4 ISO values you need to stick to are 55, 100, and 200. This will give you the sharpest image and should be used during daytime and bright situations. In low light or nighttime situations, bump it up to 1600. Importantly, if you're using zebras to monitor your exposure, when you're at ISO 1600, your zebras should be set at 95%, but when you're at ISO 55, 100, or 200, set them at 79%. Again, this is all very important in our tests. When we ignored these rules, the footage got noticeably worse. Next, to white balance. You can set this yourself based on the scene. You can also just use auto white balance and then lock it. Either way, because we configured the setting earlier, when we start recording, white balance will be locked irrespective of what we choose. For focusing, you can tap on the screen where you want to focus. If you tap and hold, the focus will lock. You can also set your focus manually by pressing the camera icon with an A next to it, and then pull focus yourself with this slider. To assist with focus, I like to turn on focus peaking. I've also turned on the rule of thirds grid, and for image stabilization, there are 4 options. I set them all to standard. Okay, our settings are good. iPhone is ready to film. We've captured all the footage that we need today. I've also put all of those settings that we just went over into a downloadable cheat sheet. It's linked below in the description. So make sure that you grab that so that you have it for easy reference. At this point, there's really only one thing left to do: talk about color grading. Okay, we're flying home to Canada. I've got 8 hours to edit and color these shots and make the video that you saw at the beginning. Now, I've already got the voiceover, which I ordered from Fiverr, mixed it with some royalty-free audio that I got from Soundstripe, and now it's just about finding the right clips for the right spots, and of course, coloring them. Now, before we get to that, I wanted to acknowledge, yes, Mitch and I are in business class on this Air Canada flight. Let me put you onto a tool. It's called Seats.aero. Free tool. It's got an optional paid plan. It helps you identify underpriced rewards flights that you can get with miles. So this direct transatlantic flight in business class for 2 of us cost a combined total of $204, plus about 100,000 miles each. Of course, being flexible with your dates helps. And this site also has underpriced economy rewards. Again, not sponsored or anything like that. Just figured I'd pass on this great tool. But now to color grading. I want to show you exactly how I graded the footage from the mini movie you saw at the beginning of this video, because it is so easy to follow these steps and get something that looks great. The tool I'm using to do this is called Filmbox, and the objective of this tool is to make your footage look like it was shot on film. Film emulation is incredibly popular in the photography space right now. Just look at how backordered cameras like some of the Fuji cameras are currently. We can achieve similar results in video. And for iPhone footage, I think this works exceptionally well because film by nature has imperfections. That's a part of its charm. And that works in our favor for footage shot on a phone because any imperfections get covered up. That's part of the intended look. Now, if that's not your vibe, I'll show you how to convert your footage with one click as well. And then that allows you to creatively style it from there how you prefer. Now, back to Filmbox. It does come with a hefty price tag. They also provide a version called Filmbox Lite. No watermark, no time limit, just limited features. And for what I'm about to show you, while I did purchase a license for Filmbox, I didn't end up diving deep into the paid features because I was so happy with what the free version was able to accomplish. So I'm only going to make edits using options that come with the free version here to show you what's possible. So here I am in DaVinci Resolve, another 100% free editing tool. I've installed Filmbox. I've got my footage on the timeline. I'm going to enter into the color tab and add the Filmbox effect to my node. Then I'll convert the footage, change my source to Apple Log. In the camera tab, change my exposure and white balance as needed. Negative tab, I'll leave as is. And then finally in lab, I'll adjust vibrance and contrast to taste. That's literally it. DaVinci Resolve, free. Filmbox Lite, free. Your iPhone, gear you already have. And this is the footage we shot. Could we do more? Always, yes. But it's remarkable how much we're able to accomplish with free software and devices we already own. Plus, in Filmbox's documentation, they literally say that the simplest way to work with Filmbox is to apply it directly to ungraded footage in a single node. So this approach is not only simple and effective, but it's recommended by the creators of the film emulation software. Now, if you simply want to convert your log footage to prepare it for any color grading, use that same LUT that I gave you for monitoring, drag it onto your footage, and now your footage is ready for any creative styling that you want to add. A couple more editing notes. This 4:3 frame, I just created it in Photoshop. It's in the description below as a downloadable PNG if you want it. And the font that I'm using is Adobe Garamond. EB Garamond is a free Google Fonts alternative if you don't have an Adobe subscription. If you want to download the mini movie at the beginning of this YouTube video without the shot on iPhone watermark that I put in the beginning, I've made it freely available for download as well in the description below. If you want to play it during church service or wherever, go for it. Also, remember to subscribe to the 167 newsletter linked in the description. Also, we'll be announcing the winners of the gear giveaways next week on Thursday in that issue of the newsletter. And download the iPhone video settings cheat sheet as well. Got all wet. Back up. What are you doing? What are you doing? Go. How's the light? It's changing a bit. Like, is it getting?
Yeah, it's a little stronger on your light. So
do you want to like move a bit this way? Like. Oh no! It's
gonna change much if you move it
that
up.
gets worse actually.
I think it's worse.
Okay.